Alright, so we got the iPhone 16 Pro Max. The iPhone 16 Pro Max is Apple's latest and greatest addition to their lineup of smartphones for 2024, and I happen to get one. My phone is a 256GB white titanium model with Apple Care warranty for 2 years. I bought it outright and I got it on launch day. Here's the box. So we're going to be doing a review on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I'm going to go over how I feel about it, what my previous phone was, and whether I think you should upgrade to it. So let's dive in. So my previous phone was a red iPhone 13. I no longer have it because I traded it in, but I still have the original box that it first came in. Next to the 16 Pro Max, here's a box for reference. Obviously, the phone is a little different. I actually have an iPhone 13 lying around, so I will get it out and compare sizes to it. That should be better. The size difference between the iPhone 13 and 16 Pro Max is very significant. And coming from someone who has, I consider, very large hands, the new size improvement of the 6.7 to the 6.9 inch display is a much welcome improvement, as it fits significantly better in my hands. Mind the dirt. And it's very easy to see how different the size is between the two. However, coming from someone who has larger hands than most, I consider the size to be very well suited for my hands versus the 13, which was well fitting when I first got it, but only got smaller and smaller as the years went on. Now this isn't a review video about the iPhone 13. This is a review video about the iPhone 16 and my personal take on it and whether I think you should get it. Now let's start with the design. The iPhone 16 Pro Max has a frosted glass back, a glass front display, and slightly polished titanium edges, with a very large, intimidating camera bump. With plenty of antennas, the power button, the new camera control button, USB-C, the volume buttons, and no SIM tray, as this is a US model. Now, coming from someone who had the very light iPhone 13, this has taken a little bit of time to get used to. However, because it is much lighter than most Pro iPhones, it has not taken as much time as it would have traditionally before, and my larger hands made that transition easier. Let's talk a little more about the display. The display is a 120Hz OLED always-on display with a dynamic island, pretty much the gold standard since the 14 Pro, and made the bezels razor thin. I know I have a screen protector on, but promise me, the bezels are thinner than they look. However, as great as those thin bezels are, most of the time you can't even see them with a case on. And coming from the 13, 120Hz is amazing. It is buttery smooth, and I found the dynamic island nice to use, especially when playing music. And here's an example of a song playing with no album cover. I do find the dynamic island nice, however I don't find it a feature I would die on a hill for. As you can see, always on has been on for most of this video. I find it convenient and it's not too much of a battery drain, so I'm leaving it on for now. Let's talk about the camera. This year, Apple changed the name of the main camera to the Fusion camera and upgraded the ultra-wide camera to have 48 megapixels and added the 5x telephoto to the smaller Pro iPhone. And here's a hot topic that Apple has been advertising as one of its main selling points for the new iPhones: camera control. The camera control allows for quick and easy access into the camera while the phone is locked or in any app other than the camera. It also allows you to change a multitude of settings such as the zoom, the focal length, the exposure, the cameras that you're shooting on, the styles, and the tone. However, it should be mentioned that all the previously mentioned settings can be controlled natively in the camera app without touching the camera button. And on most older devices, they can do the same settings, but be mindful of your camera's limitations. Although many bash Apple for the camera control being one of the only selling points of the iPhone 16, I personally like it. At my job, I am in and outside of a cooler, stocking drinks, so my phone is on and off, in and out of my pocket, so the camera app was constantly turned off. The camera control makes it very easy for me to get straight back into the shot I was trying to take while trying to restock. However, that's just my personal take. If you don't think you'll use it, do not buy it. Do not buy this phone mainly for the camera control. However, I do wish they could have done more with it. I wish they could have made the strip longer, just like the previous 5G antennas, allowed for volume control, because that would have been very nice, and the most requested feature, Touch ID. Now, enough of the camera and the design, let's talk about the chip and the RAM. Now, the chip inside of this phone is the A18 Pro, Apple's flagship 2024 processor that they put in the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max. It is a minor upgrade from last year, however it is capable of ray tracing and many graphically intensive games. I personally use it a lot to play Infinite Flight, and I've had no issues with it on the highest graphic settings. And in my opinion, the A18 Pro is more than powerful enough for 99% of users. Let's talk RAM. The iPhone 16 series and the previous iPhone 15 Pro series all have 8 gigabytes of RAM, just enough to be compatible with Apple Intelligence. Coming from the iPhone 13, the RAM has been a significant improvement. I've noticed much less app closures and lag and stuttering throughout the entire operating system. And previously, like I mentioned, at my job, my phone would be in and out of my pocket and on and off, and it would have significant lag spikes and troubles taking pictures while I was in and out of the cooler trying to restock the drinks in it. I find the upgrade to 8 gigabytes of RAM to be a well needed upgrade because 4 gigabytes of RAM should not be allowed in 2024. Here's where a controversial opinion comes out. If you have the iPhone 13 or any phone that has 4 gigabytes of RAM or less, I think that if you are an above average or a power user, that you should upgrade to any phone that has 6 gigabytes of RAM, such as this phone that I'm filming on, which is an iPhone 14 that has 6 gigabytes of RAM and has no slowdowns, especially compared to my 16 Pro Max. I've got it since I got this. I did not main this phone previously. Now this phone is running the first set of features of Apple Intelligence, which is mainly centered around writing tools. This is kind of a funny, kind of not funny example, and we're going to see what Apple Intelligence can do to it. This is kind of a mean sentence. We're going to see what will happen if I make it friendly. It's going to say it's not designed to work with this type of content, but we'll see what happens. Just like that, a lot more friendly than before. And next week, on Monday, December 9th, Apple is expected to drop iOS 18.2 with the next set of features of Apple Intelligence, including Genmoji and image creation. From all the betas, leaks, and rumors, I find Apple Intelligence to be more of a gimmick than anything useful, like they are promoting it on all the commercials that you have likely seen by now. Obviously, it will get better as it rolls out, and only time can tell from now. Now let's talk battery. This iPhone 16 Pro Max has been on since 6 a.m. and has 25% of battery still left over. I consider myself a rather heavy user, which is part of the reason why I bought this phone, especially for the bigger battery. I have been playing flight simulators, texting on all sorts of social media, and doing everything in between all day, and the phone is still at 25%. The battery has about 71 charge cycles and is still going strong only 2 months later. And something else, this phone has lasted me the entire day every single time I've used it. I've only let it die twice completely, and that was because I ignored the battery warnings even though I was right by a charger. And now it is down to the time where you, as the viewer, have to decide whether the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the 16 Pro is worth it for you. A couple of factors you should take into consideration before you buy a new phone is your current device, your budget, and what you will use the new device for. Me personally, I upgraded from the iPhone 13 because it was seriously slowing down 3 years later, and I felt like it was a necessary time to upgrade as this was my first Pro model iPhone, and it was a nice way to treat myself after saving up for so long. However, I do believe that if you have the iPhone 14 or newer, you will not appreciate the upgrade as much as you could have if you had an older device. I feel like if you have the iPhone 13 or older, even the Pro model, you will seriously appreciate the upgrade to the new phone. And for reference, this phone's starting price is $1,199, a $400 difference from the cheapest iPhone 16, starting at $799. I do not believe that everyone needs the iPhone Pro or Pro Max, but I do believe that if you get it, you will appreciate the upgrade, even if it's from a relatively new device. And that's all for today's video. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you come back to watch a future video, and peace.